Mic, yes. Bonjour tout le monde. Great to be here. I'm going to take you maybe one step back from the conversations. We want to talk about how do we build a workforce. And to build a workforce, we are thinking of education. And of course, education is what we as UNICEF spend a lot of energy into. And that notion of how do we build a human capital that builds nations and that will build the nations of tomorrow using AI and being cognizant of the AI potential is what I want to talk about. And within that, I would frame into maybe a question with two potential directions. Is AI a magic bullet in building the next workforce, or is it just a bullet? Well, first, we start from a position of deep pain. If we look at education outcome, 7 out of 10 children of 10 years old in the world, 7 out of 10, cannot explain to you a text that they read. We are globally failing to provide children with the appropriate learning outcomes. And that's the children who are in the system, in the classes. I understand the PISA score for France are also going down. I think that's a trend that we see all over the world. So we have a problem of effectiveness of the education systems. That's for children in schools. We also know there's more than 225 million children with disabilities out of school. And finally, the teachers. The world is running into a major shortage of teachers. We estimate that by 2030, the world will be short 44 million teachers. Huge issues of teachers feeling not acknowledged, struggling to really deliver the outcomes they're supposed to, struggling with administrative tasks that they feel is not giving them time to focus on the children. Really massive flow out of schools from teachers, and that's true in all the countries of the world. And yet we believe that for all of these issues, AI is indeed potentially a magic bullet. We are working with OpenAI and a few organizations to digitalize textbooks and using text-to-speech, speech-to-text facilities so that we give access to learnings for children with visual impairments. As we are testing this is potentially going to be a revolution for those children, really having the ability to interact with the knowledge in ways that was simply impossible before. We are testing ways to create AI assistants for teachers in Serbia, in Uruguay, in Bhutan, again, in ways that we had not seen before. We know that on average, I don't know the number for France, but on average, teachers spend 40% of their days not teaching. And so if we can free that time for them to be able to focus their energies on the students that need it the most, and maybe help understand from them how do we invent the studies of the future, the education and the classrooms of the future? What does that look like? Because we know that they know the students the best. We know that students learn at their own pace. We now have the ability to do what we call teaching at the right level, which means that potentially in the future we're going to have classrooms with a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old all doing math at the same level because that is going to be their level, and maybe others are going to be focused on other things. And that is again going to be enabled by what we call the personalized learning that AI enables. And we know that AI enables personalized learnings. We also know that with a tutor, that tutors on a one-to-one, the outcome on learning outcomes are tremendously powerful. So we have children who are average, who become top 5% of their classrooms if they're tutored. We believe that AI offers the potential for that tutoring, individual tutoring for all. So the potential is enormous. Yet it's not obvious to us that we are necessarily going into the right direction. So many teachers feel that they are not teaching the right kind of competencies. So many companies and industries say the workforce they're benefiting from does not reflect what they really need. We know that 65% of children in primary school today will get into jobs that we have no idea what those jobs will really look like. So how do we then expect the teachers to prepare them for that? We also know that that sense of AI affecting the workforce is starting to happen today, particularly in the tech world. We having already children coming out of tech workforces, universities, engineering, struggling to get access to markets because AI is taking over some of those jobs. And so the employment is rising, weirdly enough, in those graduates. And I think the panelists before me were saying maybe the technocrats are going to lose out. This is starting to happen. So there is major shifts in workforces that are impacting also how the education systems prepare those workforces for the future. And that becomes harder when it's hard to understand where that goes. Again, at the midway between the magic bullet and the bullet, we look at a lot of complementarity. So when we do studies in Nigeria using Gen AI assisted towards teachers to support out-of-school children, we see growth in terms of learning outcomes equivalent to 6 months of learning in just 4 weeks. So the potential is enormous when it's really supported by trained teachers. And again, this is all about Gen AI. It's not the machine learning. Yet we also know that when we use Gen AI for substitution, there was a study by MIT that indicates that there is what we call neurocognitive loss by the children using Gen AI too regularly. We already have studies indicating that for those children using that, as they write essays, they become less able to write essays into the future. And that is actually a lot faster than many people studying AI had realized. And that doesn't affect only students, it affects professionals. There was a study recently in Poland which were using of doctors using Gen AI to help them look at X-rays and to help them analyze X-rays. Within 3 months' time of that use, their ability to analyze the X-ray with the same degree of quality had diminished substantively in just 3 months. And so how do we make the best of AI without AI becoming a bullet to the brain, really, in terms of the societies? And that, of course, is not all. Part of what we know is AI is not going to affect everyone equally. When we tested AI in giving AI support to startup engineers in Kenya, we realized that those highest performers were benefiting from AI tremendously. When using the same prompt, the same question, those lowest performers of entrepreneurs, same questions, same prompt, same AI, were not questioning the results and the responses they were getting from AI, and they were going into the wall in many times. They were simply doing what the tool was telling them to do. So the ability to be digitally literate enough to understand and assess and criticize and challenge what those AI are going to be giving us is going to be incredibly important. Second layer, which again from a UNICEF lens we believe could definitely be a bullet, is the notion of misinformation, or I normally call it the truth. As AI develop, we already know that it's becoming harder and harder for all of us, and certainly for children, to understand what is factual versus what is fabricated fact, what is real for what is unreal, and therefore to understand and arrive at what is truth. And that, of course, from a societal perspective, is going to potentially be a major societal threat. If we cannot agree on what is true, then we are potentially really looking at a very dark future in which my truth will be just for me and my friends and those people who have the same beliefs, and then we all of us, we're going to have the truth of as many people that we have in the room. So analytical thinking is going to be the key issue. We know that that's the primary focus of the skills of the future. We are working with a number of schools to understand how do we embed primary analytical thinking, grit, teamwork in education systems around the world. And that is, of course, part of what we believe is the future of the way to educate. Is not going to be about content, it's also going to be about how do I understand the content, challenge the content, focus on what I like or don't like. Maybe a few thoughts on the way forward, not just in France, but maybe everywhere in the world as we work on this challenge of defining the human capital of the future. First one is we must have teachers in the center. Not only because if they're not in the center, every single edtech has not worked, but because they should be the champion to also help us understand what is the most powerful use of those tools in the classroom and outside the classroom. We want to and need to work not just with government, but with industry to understand how is those AI impacting the job market, what are the skills that is going to be the most valued to enable that workforce to transition into that job market. We need to understand how the AI is going to impact the neuroplasticity of children, both positively and potentially negatively. We know that it's happening today with the social media, and this is what I talk about when I talk about the opportunity and challenges from a societal perspective. We today are managing in schools the reality of the social media impact on the difficulty of many children to focus for more than 30 seconds at a time. How will AI impact on our neurodiversity, on our neuroplasticity, is going to be massively important for all of us to understand if we want to, again, build a future that we understand and that we follow and monitor, and that is part of the learning that we focus our energy on, having longitudinal research to understand the impact of this into the future. And that is maybe the thought that we wanted to share. We hope that this has been helpful, and we do believe that AI is a magic bullet potentially in so many countries of the world. Let it not just be a bullet for societies worldwide as well. Thank you.